Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. For the next 30 minutes, we'll be covering the topic how to generate custom security awareness training with AI. But before we get into that, let's go through some housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded, and the recording and the slide deck will be shared with you later today. You can also use the Q&A feature to post questions to Hoxhunt today. We might answer your questions directly in the chat or answer them later. If you still have any questions after the webinar, feel free to reach out to us on LinkedIn or to the folks at hoxhunt.com. And all right, now that we've covered some housekeeping items, let's move on to the introductions. And today I'm delighted to introduce Ilmari Kontulainen. Ilmari is the senior product manager at Hoxhunt, working every day to understand our customers' needs and build our product around this use case. Welcome, Ilmari. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
And I'm Maxime Cartier. I'm the head of human risk at Hoxhunt, and I have a background leading security awareness, behavior, and culture change programs for several well-known global companies. Today, we'll be covering the following agenda. First, the importance of customization when it comes to security awareness training. Then how to generate security awareness training content with AI, or can we get help, or can we save time with AI to generate our content? And finally, how to customize any SAT content for your organization. So let's get started. As I shared just a minute ago, I've been a security awareness manager myself, and as such, I needed regularly to create or buy security awareness training content, such as e-learnings, videos, posters, etc. So one option was to create everything in-house, but this was both time and budget consuming. And the other option was to buy off-the-shelf content from an external company. And for the second option, I also found it extremely difficult to actually find the right off-the-shelf training content from vendors. As good production value of some of this content could be, there was always something that felt a little bit off. And sometimes it was cultural. The content just didn't feel right for our organization, our values, or where most of our people were based. And sometimes it was the security instructions that were given actually in this content that would, let's say, a training would say that the password should be 8-character long, when we asked in our policies our employees to have 10-character long passwords. Or perhaps the training was saying that always use a VPN when using public Wi-Fi, when our VPN was always on by default and the employees didn't have a choice anyway. With non-customizable content, you run the risk of confusing employees with kind of mixed messages about security that do not correlate to your policies and to your environment. And furthermore, it can be at odds with your organization's culture. So the only way for training to be effective is that it must be relevant. And that means having the right message, befitting your learning objectives, of course, befitting the context of the employee and their current skill level. It also means having the right tone of voice that is befitting your organizational culture. However, not every organization has the means to create bespoke security training from scratch. I get that. And that's where customization and generative AI features are a game changer, in my opinion. So today, Ilmari, you will demo Hoxhunt new features in this domain.
We at Hoxhunt, we of course take generative AI and everything around intelligence and automation very seriously and incorporate that as part of the product in order to provide a streamlined and efficient way to manage your awareness program. So we have heard a lot of this feedback that Maxime, you were describing, that there's a need to customize, tailor, or create awareness content, but it of course very time consuming. So we took a stab at it. How can we make it more streamlined? This is now the introduction of those customization capabilities around Hoxhunt's security awareness training content. The capabilities that we have recently released enable anyone using Hoxhunt to generate new training content using generative AI from existing body of knowledge. Also, Hoxhunt has a pretty extensive library of existing modules, soon ranging to 200 modules, all translated to 35 languages. So now you can take that content, take those modules, make any modifications, any edits, make it fit your policies and practices. And yeah, that's really the capabilities that we are going to walk through right now. And I'm going to demonstrate 3 different use cases. And let's start actually with the coolest one, and that will be generating awareness content from existing materials. And so as a product person, I usually like to show things live from the product. So I'm going to grab the screen. So the security awareness training section in the admin portal basically lists all the topics and under them all the modules that are available. And for the content generation, we need some existing material. So for these demonstration purposes, I have created a hypothetical information security policy. And usually, like, organizations have these kind of materials available, and then the trainings might be based on this. You can use any material you want, but this is just for the demonstration purposes. So the information security policy contains like an introduction, some definitions, a policy statement, some roles and responsibilities, what is the role of the CEO, CIO, classification and handling of information assets, minimum requirements and controls, and so on. So now our intention here would be to turn this existing content or material into a training that we can then assign to users. And how we do that, we have made it relatively streamlined. To get started, we have here a new button called Generate a Topic. And basically what it allows us to do is take this existing material, copy paste it into the field, and then I'll simply press the generate. And what it will do now is basically send this information to our large language model that we are using, and it asks the large language model to generate number of micro-training modules that consist of cards and each followed by a quiz. And it usually takes like 30 seconds or so to get the content. Okay, so now what we have is 5 modules. So an introduction, more information about the information security policy, risks, controls, and a module about training. And we can see, so this is also the Hoxhunt security awareness training content format. So you have these like battle cards, and you can have any number of them. So if you want to add a new one, we can add a new one. So this, for example, goes through like, hey, what is information security and why is it important? And then who is responsible for information security? And then this is the quiz that was generated automatically based on the material. And now the output might not be like sufficient on the first go, but rather we might need to alter things in various ways. So once we are ready with our edits, we can just turn on the modules and they will be part of the Hoxhunt micro training that is delivered to the users when they report the phishing simulations. Okay. And we can, of course, utilize the modules in the training packages as well. All right. So, hey, let's do another use case where we would be creating the content from scratch. So let's say we want to create a module about credential harvesters. What we can do is simply go to one of the existing topics and add the module to the add module button at the top corner and give it a name. And then start creating the content. And for these demo purposes, I will actually have some of that content ready right here so that I don't have to write it all up. And here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to add some text to the cards. And then I have a few images that I have generated earlier. And now this should work. All right. So we create the content from scratch by simply adding card after another. And so, or I'm just putting the content in place. So what I have here is like just few sentences about the topic, and then I have generated some images that follow the story a little bit, and card after card, we have ourselves a nice little comic that then we can or distribute to the users. So let's see one more. And all right. So now to like preview what the users would be seeing. So when they go through the content, so what they would see is this kind of short story about credential harvesters with some images supporting it. All right. And then each micro-training module contains always a quiz that assesses if the user understood the topic at hand. And for this credential harvesters topic, I have actually like a screenshot of two different web pages. And one of them is actually a credential harvester, or so malicious site, and one of them is actually a genuine site. And so we can actually see it from this URL that the first one is using a domain that doesn't look genuine. So we construct our quiz then to ask from the user which of these landing pages look genuine. And so we upload the image and we ask the question, which of them is malicious? And then for the quizzes, we can also incorporate a explanation. So when the user chooses that answer option, they will also get like an explanation if it was correct, why it was correct, or if it was incorrect, why it was incorrect. And let's just, and now we use the same explanation for both, but of course this could be also separate. All right. And so now we have ourselves a fully functional security awareness training module about credential harvesters, including a short story, a little bit of images that catches the user's attention, and followed by a quiz that we can then assess whether the user understood the topic or not. All right. And it should be right here. And in order for us to now distribute to the user, we should toggle the model on. And okay, so that concludes the use case number 2, which is creating content from scratch. And then the third use case would be about taking some content that's already in Hoxhunt, but making some modifications. But before we actually jump into that, let's actually see how we add language variants to the current content. So I'm originally from Finland, so I want to add Finnish translations to this content. So that actually happens simply by going back to the editor, where we can like edit all this, but we can also add language variants. So now I'm adding the Finnish here, and this would mean after adding the Finnish language, all the users who have set their language as Finnish, they would actually receive this content in Finnish. And I have the language translations like ready here, so let's just put them in place. Okay, there. And so we need a little bit of copy pasting here, and we put the content in place right there. after a few clicks, we are done. All right. So now, if we switch back to the preview mode, so for the users who have their language set in Finnish, they would receive the contents. And well, the users who have their language in English, they would receive the content in English. And so if you have like more languages you need to support, well, you would need to replicate this process for each of the languages. But this is still like usually beneficial to provide the training in the languages that the users are then using. Okay, so this actually concludes the use case number 2, which is like creating the content from scratch. Okay, and for the last one, let's say we want to train the users about physical security. And let's say we have a module about batch policy. Our company policy would be that we would be using the word card instead of batch. So then what we can do is we can make a duplicate of this module, and it will soon appear on the bottom. And then we can do any changes we want to the content to ensure that it matches our policies and practices or terminology. So here we would take just change the words. And so on. And let's assume that we would be doing it to the others as well. We can also, of course, add new media, change the media maybe to match the organization style branding. We can add, of course, new cards to talk about more specific policies and practices at your organization. And so on. And yeah, and that's really the simplicity of it. So taking something that's existing, making some modification, well, the same would apply, of course, here to the quizzes. So we would change all the wordings in all of these. And so on. And yeah, this really concludes then the third example. So now we have like some content that we have generated, some content that we have created, and some content that we have modified. We have talked about delivering these modules to the users within the adaptive phishing training. Another way to distribute the content would be then to bundle them into the training packages. And that's also like a pretty quick, straightforward thing to do. So for instance, for the topic that we generated in the beginning, we can find it from here. Also, the module that we created from scratch, we can find it from here. And lastly, the module that we tailored, we can find it from here. And basically, now we could just publish the training and make it available to the users. And yeah, that's really it. These were the new capabilities that enable you to streamline the content creation, content generation, content tailoring. And yeah.
Thank you, Ilmari. I cannot overstate the importance of customizing your training content and making it relevant to your organization. So I think it's a great feature that you've shown, or great features actually that you've shown today. You know, basically having this training that is really specific about your own policies and not some general security best practices. That is perhaps also showing some of your branding or images that people at your organizations are used to see. The logo or the mascot of your awareness program or these kind of things. You know, that really makes people realize that you've put some effort, some thoughts into this, and that it's really made for them, and that it's really, it makes it feel a lot more important, I feel, and people will want to take this training and to engage more, and they will learn more. So thanks for sharing this, and I have a couple of questions. The first one was about the impressive generative AI feature. Is the information that someone is sharing using the Gen AI feature, like their information security policy, is it private?
Yes. So all data that we handle is handled according to our data processing agreements that we have in place. We are utilizing the Google's AI or large language models that also guarantee that whatever data you enter, it's not used for any training purposes, and it's like guaranteed that it stays safe for any data privacy and then security related matters, as we work with like some of the biggest organizations in the world after all.
Great. Thank you for the precision there. And what's in store for the future? I mean, generative AI, it's sometimes it feels like it's just starting, and there's so much coming, and it will improve a lot, and you can do so much with it. So where is Hoxhunt going with generative AI?
Yes, so that's a very, very interesting question. You might have seen a small glimpse of how we could streamline the content generation, creation process even further. So now I, for example, had to use still another service, for example, to translate the content. So supporting multinational organizations with their language requirements is, of course, like one thing. Since we have a lot of organizations using multiple languages, their workforce uses multiple languages. So making that content creation in those organizations more streamlined. Of course, we also saw the media elements. So potentially being able to generate the media elements because that part of generative AI is moving really, really fast. So both image generation, that's already amazing what you can do, but then also moving into like video generation. So those are like some of the things that we are looking into, like how and when could we incorporate those as part of the product. And then of course now we have been talking a lot about the security awareness training content side, but Hoxhunt has phishing training side, which is even like more, how would I say, important part if we think about what are the biggest risks in the organizations. So being able to use these generative AI capabilities on that side is also something that we are still looking into even during this year on the product side. It's all about like how to provide the best like user first cybersecurity training, whether it's about phishing simulations, whether it's about security awareness training content, whether it's about anything else for that matter.
Yeah, that sounds quite exciting. Thank you so much, Ilmari, for the demo today. I hope everyone today will be looking forward to try these new features. And with that, we're reaching the end of today's webinar. So thank you so much for your time today. We'll be following up soon via email with the webinar recording and some related resources if you'd like to continue learning. And if you have any questions, you can contact us anytime at hoxhunt.com. I wish you all a fantastic day. Bye-bye.